Welcome, everyone. We have got something a bit different here today. I am going to bring in a special guest, a friend of mine who works at Microsoft and who's been very involved in the Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption program. So if you've just started with Microsoft 365 Copilot in your organization and you just don't know what to do in terms of the change management, the user training, if you're a user and you sit and you're excited to have this in front of you and you've got that blank box sitting there and you're like, now what I do, then this is for you. This is going to take you through the whole story around how you can make the most out of it and how you can use it and where the value really is. So I would like to introduce my friend Adam Gernon from Microsoft with his Copilot hoodie here. Adam, hello.
Good day.
I'm
Hi,
a
how
bit
are
jealous.
you?
I'm jealous of the swag. Tell us a little bit about you and what you've been doing with the Microsoft 365 Copilot adoption program.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks for having me on the show. So, yeah, look, I'm one of the Microsoft 365 cloud solution architects that have been taking our customers in the ANZ region through the early access program. And that was all about private preview of M365 Copilot for those that had signed up. There was 59 of them in Australia, and bringing them through the technical readiness, the adoption and change readiness, driving towards business value to then lead into a business case to look at how they might expand.
So tell us how that's gone. There's been so much excitement about this product, and you were working with it when just the early access program people had it. So I'm sure you've got a lot to share here that can help us with those of us who are just starting out, a bit later in the piece now, some wisdom for us, right?
Absolutely. And well, first of all, it's been quite the journey. Like seeing the product vision become reality at GA was quite incredible. There's been some other challenges along the way. We had new Outlook that users had to go to. There was moving towards current channel, which was a challenge for different users. But ultimately, the biggest challenge has been Gen AI from both a personal perspective and then a corporate risk perspective, so that we could then get going. So when we talk about the learnings along the way, different organizations were at different points in that. So there's been a full spectrum of those that are still kind of at the security, governance, compliance step, right through to those that have gone the whole way and have expanded and bought, some examples of 20,000 licenses. And although I'm ANZ based, I'm part of Corp, and we had full visibility across all 1,300 or thereabouts EAP customers. So that's what I'll be sharing on the call today.
Excellent. And I know you're going to share this, but this is as much a change management piece of work as it is a technical piece of work, isn't it? Because this, I think the very first video I did when I saw the announcement was like, this changes everything. Like this is a fundamental rethinking of what we do and how we do it. That's probably like nothing else we've seen for a very long time.
And then some. We're talking about we're talking about the technical enablement piece is the easy part. It's sitting on top of your existing Microsoft 365 stack. So that part, after I don't know, there's a few different nuances to it, like have you got transcription enabled in meetings to be able to use Copilot in a meeting and the likes. But when you get past that, really, it is all about the adoption and change and being able to help the users stay the course. We are moving from a deterministic yes, no, pass, fail mindset towards probabilistic. And that means we need to look at it more like a agile experimentation kind of mindset, where you try it and you might follow more of a feedback comeback mindset, which is really challenging for a lot of organizations to go on that journey because we are so ingrained in how we've worked to date. What didn't help is, I suppose, the media hype around this. And obviously we know, ChatGPT went to 100 million users in the 9 months or something ridiculous. It was just so fast. And, a year ago, most people wouldn't have even known what Gen AI or ChatGPT was. And now look where it is in the psyche of the general population, not just in terms of tech people or business. This is reflected in the Gartner hype cycle. So when we talk about it as it's an adoption and change journey, it's also impacted by what we're looking at here, where people's expectations were incredibly high for what it could do.
Yeah.
very quickly, we've seen, without the right support from an adoption and change perspective, with being able to mitigate some of that to support them through the journey, very quickly they will drop off into the trough of disillusionment. So what I'll be sharing is some of the ways that we've been able to mitigate that as a project and as an adoption journey. And then we'll look at, but what can it do for me?
And this is actually where the conversation started when you and I chatted, you know, when we decided to do this, because I'm seeing a lot of people sitting in that trough of disillusionment. And I think the inflated expectations, especially because we had this early access program where only enterprise customers could get it for a period of time, the peak of inflated expectations for everyone else, I think, just got higher and higher, along with a level of sort of frustration and FOMO and all of those things. And then that moment of, you know, I hear from some people now, oh, well, I tried one or two things and it's a bit rubbish. And I think the same thing happens with a lot of the generative AI is people see a blank box and they type in something and it doesn't magic everything the way they would expect. And there's a rethinking and a reskilling going on there. So yeah, this is exactly where I think a lot of people are, and why I, you know, wanted you to come and share some of what you've seen of how we bring people back out of that, because I think those first two things have been particularly extreme from what I'm seeing with this.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely reflected in my observations. And I think the first key point here is for anyone that's either got a license or is about to use it, it's all about staying the course, right?
Yeah.
You will be challenged by it. At times it will be frustrating. I certainly have gone through that journey and can tell you that no matter how frustrated I got, it didn't seem to matter to Copilot. And so it really is important to remember that.
But the Copilot doesn't care if you're frustrated, does it?
No, not at all. Only you are. But why that's important as well is, you know, there's all the hype around AI will take over our jobs, and that's a real fear for a lot of people out there. I lead with, I don't think AI will take over all of our jobs, but I think people that are able to use AI will. And so this is the opportunity for people to actually get ahead of the curve, be part of the journey, because I think those that are resistant over time will be at risk.
Yeah. And I think, you know, for those of us old enough to remember work before Google was a thing, you know, before search engines were a thing, we used to have to refer to books or look things up. Like, there was a whole different thing. And that idea, some of those early web pages and early search experiences, that idea that you could search for something and how do you search in this new way and get the information and how can you trust it? That was a learning curve. I think this is much bigger, but it's a similar concept of this fundamentally changes things. And there is a whole new skill set to learn and a whole new way of thinking about things. And it's not the same as a search engine, importantly. I think I've seen some stuff, especially for people who never knew work before search engines, very much more inclined to just kind of go in and give it an instruction. Whereas this idea of thinking about delegating and asking in context is a different kind of skill. So yeah, staying the course. I like this as advice. Yeah, don't just try it once and say this is rubbish, because it's you. If that's the case.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Assume you're the problem, and then you'll probably get better. Right?
It's harsh, but fair, right?
Well, it's certainly one I had to go through myself to then go, okay.
Oh, I've been there too. Yeah, the first time you try it, you're like, oh, this isn't as magic as I thought it would be.
And that's really important. It's also worth just reiterating that it's Copilot, not autopilot. And I think some of the expectations are that it'd be autopilot. And this is where it is about iterating till you get what you're looking for, or good enough that you can then like take the 80-20 kind of Pareto law to it and then hone it into what you needed. And I guarantee you, if you take that approach, you will get a far quicker outcome at a better quality, and hopefully manage that own feelings around working with Gen AI. So what I've got on screen here is a very high level, and this is more targeted at the, let's call it the program team, the adoption and change team for any organizations. And the first thing I will just say is this is an adoption and change journey. It is no different than rolling out other technology, whether that was Teams or maybe it's, I don't know, ServiceNow or whatever else you're using in your organization. Think of it as, how do we get strong sponsorship? demonstrating the way, showing them how to use it, let them then be the driving force top down. How do we then support, from an adoption and change perspective, the different cohorts to feel enabled, so they have the capacity, but also then the capability? How are we enabling them to have fun and experiment and share? This is really the most important part about this, is working out loud, collaborating, sharing with your other cohorts, because, you know, we'll have innovators that will try anything, give it a go, and giving them a platform to share those, so that others that may not be as innovative or willing to try can copy it and see it for themselves and what they do, and hopefully build on top of that and share that back in and be able to build a library of what's really working for your organization. Small but ubiquitous. What I'm talking about there is to mitigate that drop off to the trough of disillusionment. The quicker we can get people to see value, the better. So finding those examples, like where you have, you know, in government, we say things like where we take minutes and waste hours. When I was working there, I found that always resonated, and it's certainly not limited to government. And so how do we show value by being effective before, during, and after a meeting? How do we then build on top of that? I use an analogy of introducing a kitten to a home, one room at a time, so that we can actually bring the users with us. They see the value in a meeting. We don't just have a meeting. Let's then find information related to that. How do we then kind of just show them a day in the life and make it easy for them to align what they're seeing from a value perspective to what they do, and then have the encouragement and the trust to be able to do that themselves and see for themselves, which then will lead obviously into how will you measure success. And capturing it, every organization wants to understand, but for us in our organization, what is the benefits? We have the Total Economic Impact Report published today from Forrester on this, which anyone can use for their business case and see the business value that's being generated more broadly, but layer that again with, and what about for our organization? Where are we seeing the most value?
Yeah, and I think that's especially important given that there is a cost associated with this. There's been a lot of noise about that. But once you start seeing the actual value of it beyond the kind of, I don't know what to do, and you start to see those small but ubiquitous use cases and those things in there, the cost, I think, then starts to make a whole lot more sense than that return on, you know, measuring the success is about that return on investment as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I will also show some, not just, like, everyone's talking about productivity benefits, and obviously that's a logical point and starting point, but I'll also show some of the other benefits you get, like a quality benefit, a CSAT benefit, employee retention benefits. Like, it goes across the board, and it is important that we look at the quanta and qual when we're trying to measure that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Have you got some stuff to show us? What does it look like?
Yeah, let's get into the action.
Let's get into some demos. Yeah.
Okay. Yay. All right.
We've got our change management under control. Let's see what the users are actually going to do with it. How can we help them get more out of it?
So what I'll do is I'll just take you through a little journey as a project team. And on my screen in a moment, you should be able to see a project meeting that happened which was Project Falcon. And this meeting was a go, no go decision. And I'm one of the key sponsors that needed to also report this back up to my LT. So I need to look at what happened here, but I couldn't make it. I had 3 other meetings at that time. And rather than go and talk to Anna Maria, who's the PM, or watch the video again, I'm going to try and save myself an hour and hopefully in 3 minutes get everything I needed from this. Okay. So start your watches. The first thing I should put a little
timer here.
Countdown.
Because honestly, no one ever goes back and watches the meeting. I mean, rarely. We all record meetings, but this is a really critical thing. It's like, in theory, we watch the meetings. In reality, kind of tedious to find that hour that you didn't have earlier to watch it. So, all right, start the clock, Adam. 3 minutes.
Sure. And one thing I'll quickly look at, what you're looking at here is what's called intelligent recap. That's part of Copilot and Teams Premium. It's AI generating this to help with, well, I call it like an autopilot view, but it'll generate the topics and chapters. But what we want is actually more context and behind the scenes. So let's see how Copilot does that. So the first thing I can see here is I just asked it to summarize the meeting just to make sure, am I in the right room? Yes, that is exactly what I was expecting the team to talk about, the go, no go. And there was a delay for 2 weeks. Right. I need to report that out. So I'm going to need to get that information. I also have Gavin, who is my, let's call it my challenging stakeholder that I need to manage. So I also need to understand where Gavin was at in terms of this decision point, right? And help me prepare for our one-on-one later on. So I can quickly scan through this, see Gavin had some actions. Great, I can also talk about that later, and so on and so forth. Awesome. The next thing I'm going to do is actually ask Copilot to list the pros and cons of the decision to delay. And what I can then do is actually look at the pros and cons and capture them to feed them into the steer code deck. But you can see here the first time I did it, if I just go back there, I forgot to actually say output it in a table. So it gave it to me, but then I have to do the reformatting. And I'm like most people, I like to think I'm efficient, but I'm also kind of lazy. So why would I do that when I can get Copilot to do that for me? Copy, and I've got this nicely in a formatted table, which I can then copy and put in the steer code deck. I might have also
basic prompting skills, right? You can ask it to give it to you in a certain outputted format is one of those things that once you get the hang of that can make a huge difference to the value of it. So yeah, that's much better in a table.
Isn't it? Like, and it's so basic. And this is the key is like, as we keep on learning and seeing what else it can do, and as the product keeps maturing and more capabilities come, there is less and less, if you will, that it can't do for people, but they just need to give it a try and stay the course, right? So very easy. I can copy that out. I could have said to it, can you write this for an executive audience or include who actually said what, whatever I actually needed. One quick point to note here is that our responsible AI, it is Copilot. It is your responsibility to check. I use an analogy of you've hired a grad in your team or a uni student and they've just joined your team. They know a lot about a lot of things, but not necessarily about your organization, your domain, your roles, your context. And so think about how you might ask them to do an activity for you. You're not going to then just blindly forward it without having to review it.
Always check their work. Yep.
Absolutely. And put it in your tone and everything else. So that's where I think of Copilot like that. They're part of your project team, but ultimately you're still on point. Okay. So that's pretty good. As mentioned, I also really want to understand where Gavin was at. So I've asked, was Gavin happy with the decision to delay? And you can see Copilot's come back and said, no, Gavin was not happy with the decision to delay, objected by saying there was too much at stake, but later agreed to a compromise, but did not seem enthusiastic about it. Again, just to remember, this is the transcription we're looking at here. It's not looking at your image. It's not looking at presentations. It is purely on the transcription. That's, again, part of our AI standards, our responsible AI. And so I'm now ready to catch up with Gavin, which I probably wouldn't have even got that information if I had spoken to one of the PMs or anyone else in the meeting, right? Go.
Asking for a specific piece of information, right? Because I think the first thing people do is click the standard prompt to go summarize this meeting. So now we've got ask for an output in a certain format is a thing you can do. Ask for a specific piece of information is another thing that you can do that's really high value of like, I need to talk to Gavin. What does Gavin think? Yeah. Oh, what wasn't discussed? All right, here we go.
I agree, Lisa. And it's kind of like I think of it sometimes as like autopilot or intelligent recaps gives me like a 2D view. By interrogating this, I get the context, I get that whole richness of, but what actually happened, as if I was in the room.
Yes.
And what did you observe? I love this one. What wasn't discussed in this meeting?
Good.
Have a quick look at that. So highlighted that we didn't cover off the budget and resources, the feedback from end users in the beta, the contingency planning, target audience and segmentation, metrics and goals for success. How good's that?
That's great.
So we also now have our agenda for our next meeting, right? Yes.
Yeah, what helped us? So again, this is now like your assistant. It's like, what other things did we not think of? What other things didn't we cover? Yeah, so we're asking it for a specific piece of information, but also that idea of asking it to help you notice things you've missed.
Yes, and when you're time poor or you're stretched and stressed, really helpful. Yeah. All right. So that was Copilot within the context of a meeting, but we don't just run meetings, right? We also need to find information that might have come in after that meeting. We also need to kind of typically summarize it into, as I mentioned, we'll put it into a steer code deck, and we'll go through the bouncy ball of what else would a program manager or a sponsor do to be able to report this up the chain. All right, so I've just brought up another screen here, which is the M365 chat or Copilot that goes across all of your work grounded data. And what that means is it's not just looking at your emails and contacts in your calendar. It's also looking at, your Teams chats, your history, your meeting history. It basically goes across everything that you've been interacting with in M365 to be able to answer questions about more broadly across everything. Might not the best explanation of that, but when you see it in action, it'll make a lot more sense. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask it for any information related to Project Dock of the Bay. Asterisk, Project Falcon got rebranded internally.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
I think we all understand that. We've all been there.
And so what I've also asked it to do is just look in my emails over the last week. All right. That was when we last reported on this. And
so like what you've done here, and again, you're directing it to look at emails, which is something that if you just put in that more general thing, it's going to go everywhere, but there's probably something in email. You've probably got so many emails, can't find the stuff.
Oh, and I had an exec tell me they get 400 emails a day. So they probably mightn't have even opened some of these emails to even know they had that information. Right?
I feel slightly sick hearing that.
But they have Copilot, so they're okay now. So you can see here, it's come back and found an email that I hadn't even opened, that there was a 3-day delay on milestone 3. So the first thing I need to know are what are the milestones for project. And as we showed it earlier, output it in a table. This is a great example where I can't even remember where that milestone list was. I know I've seen it. Was it in our SharePoint? Was it shared with me in an email? Where was it on a?
It's a real challenge, isn't it? With all, I've got so many sources and channels, and where did I see that thing? Yeah, I'm loving having a graduate enthusiastic intern who can go find that for me. I've been using this part of it a lot. Please find me any files about this thing, and that's one of my favorite things so far. But I haven't done this. I've gone find the file, right? But this is the next level of thinking. Find the information I'm looking for, not just find the file. Find the information. Tell me where it is. Yeah.
And so it's done that for me. It's found the list, right? But you can see here in our example, milestone 3 is dated the 17th of October. So what I now want to do is actually update this so I can use it in the steer code deck with the email we received from Amrita. So let's ask Copilot to do that.
Okay, this is cool. Getting it to do something for you now.
Yeah. And just bear in mind, I could have had 20 emails. Ask it to update all of them based on that, or which ones you wanted to update, because some of them might have been let's call it a risk that didn't actually materialize into a milestone impact or delay.
Yeah. And that previous one, it's given you the information you were looking for, but we can see there it actually showed you the link to the file. So if you wanted to go in and look at the original source, you could just click through straight from there as well, right? So it's giving you the information and the reference. Yeah.
And obviously, as part of responsible AI, it's really important that you do go and validate that is the right file and those are the right dates. And so very quickly, we've now got, not only have we found the delay in an email we didn't even know we had, we've then found the milestone list that I couldn't remember where it was. And I've also got Copilot to update that, so I can very quickly copy and paste that into the deck for the next steer.
Yeah.
Right. So, but wait, there's more. So
well, of course there is. I'd be disappointed if there wasn't.
So what I've done is I've followed the link, and this is the deck. So yes, I could copy and paste it in. To be honest, I also just want to flag that sometimes if I only have that one update, it might just be easier for me to just
go change it.
Yeah. So bear that in mind, that not everything will I use Copilot, but I will use it to validate it, and I'll always look for the easiest path. But now that
Copilot's done the time-consuming work there for you of finding the information in your 400 emails, reporting it back, allowing you to fight. You didn't have to go, where was that file? Where was that email? What was the date? Now that you've got the date, typing it in is, neither here nor there, right?
Exactly. And also it's validated the actual date update, so I can kind of use it as my quality assurance. Did I actually do the maths right on that? So what I'm doing here is, now that I've come into the Steerco deck, I've just taken on this and now I'm reporting on it. I noticed that it's got no real structure. So I've asked Copilot to help me to just format it into sections and grouping it, because I don't like doing that. It's a bit tedious, and adding an agenda. Right. So Copilot's done a really good job on that. Okay. So the last thing I want to do is, while I'm here, I also just wanted I wanted to give the impression that we're well on track and there's nothing to see here, right? So I'm just going to quickly create the duplicate slide. I'm just going to get rid of this. And I'm just going to ask Copilot to add an image. Now, add an image of a tree to this slide in a field with lots of blue sky and a busy exec working outdoors on a laptop looking relaxed. I've made this up.
I love that. Everything is calm and wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, and this is
now we have to have an I'm sorry, something went wrong. We're not going to edit this out because we have this experience. It is part of the experience.
Absolutely. And what I will actually show you is that it's really important that this happened. And also it's important, hopefully, that we do see a hallucination, because this is the experience that everyone out there will get, right? This happens. As much as we're doing in the background to make it better, it will happen to you. So it's worth seeing, how do I mitigate it? I typically will close Copilot. I might close PowerPoint and come back in later. If it's still not working, I'll check to see, is this working for others?
And you've also clicked, there was a new topic button there, which is sort of like a reset on the conversation thread, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I've done that. And as you can see now, I have this very nice image of an exec working on a laptop with a big tree and a bit of blue sky in the background. Awesome.
That looks like a nice day at work, I've got to say.
Yeah.
I'm feeling calm, relaxed now.
And so the last thing I'm going to do is, okay, so I've now got my Steerco deck. Now I sometimes will use Copilot to help me with the speech for this. So help me to create my speaking notes tied to this. I might do that in chat, or I might do it in here. For this project, though, I don't really need to do that, just flagging what else you might want to do. So what I'm going to do instead is go, okay, well, now that we've got the deck and I've updated with the milestones and the pros and cons, I need to just copy that out. I'll do that later. It won't take me 2 minutes. The last thing I'll typically do is go, and we've got to send an email out. So I'm going to ask it to draft an email to the Steerco for project Dock in the Bay based on that file, right? As we have here.
Oh, so that's based on your PowerPoint deck? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly. So I've just referenced that with context IQ, which is the / which you can see here. And it will basically allow me to reference files, meetings, and so on and so forth, people. And it's actually a hot tip out there for those that may not be aware. Sometimes when I can't find a file, let's say I know Dennis shared it with me, I might just do that context IQ and / Dennis, and then filter on the files tab to find files that Dennis and I have collaborated on to quickly, hopefully find what I was looking for that I may not even know about.
Nice.
Yes.
I did not know that. There's good tip. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll let them also make it brief for an exec with a one-line summary at the top. So I want to just basically get it to draft. This is the update. These are the changes. This is what you need to be aware of.
The suspense.
Drum roll.
That's pretty quick. Oh, look at that. It's highlighted the one that changed.
Yeah.
See, because this is boring stuff, having to write, you've done the work and now you have to write it out, to summarize it, to tell other people about it. That's like, I don't know if anyone leaps out of bed in the morning and goes, yay,
yeah.
Good use of my time. But it's an important activity, right? To communicate it with other people.
Absolutely. And look, let's stop that kind of scenario end to end there. But hopefully you got a real sense of how you help users see in a day in the life kind of way that they work, how you start to build these, let's call it building blocks of a meeting, with information finding, with synthesizing information, with presenting information, creating information, but then ultimately bringing it all together and communicating out. And all of that through that whole journey, Copilot's been a great help with.
That's good. I've definitely learned some new skills there that I'm going to go and try.
All right. So we're want to see more?
Yeah, okay. Of course I do.
Great. So now I'm going to kind of change to more, let's call it personal productivity, right? So I'm going to ask Copilot I'm just going to pop this in and let it do its work, and I'll explain. So I've asked it to help me by looking in my calendars, meetings, emails, and Teams chat yesterday to provide an activity list across those related to M365 Copilot. Give them different categories and my time spent against these. Also, give me
anyone who ever has to do a timesheet, pay attention now. This is good.
And also, just because of what we're doing here, I've just asked it to make it to de-identify the customers that I've been working with.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. So this is going to help you with how are you spending your time? Because honestly, I know for me, sometimes you get to the end of the day and go, I've been busy all day, but what have I done? But also I'm seeing a timesheet scenario here too, because if you have to log what you spent your time on and it's not sitting there really obviously, but you've been doing a lot of chats and emails and things, it's going to pick that up, isn't it?
Absolutely.
All right. How did you spend your day yesterday, Adam?
Actually, this might be awkward. So
I think you're okay.
So far, so good.
Looks like you had a busy day.
It does, doesn't it? So really good one for anyone to try at home. And I agree, it's a really good one for those that have to fill in timesheets too. Right. So first of all, it's pre-season. I think we all spend too much time at work and always finding time, managing time on our calendar hard. So I'm going to ask Copilot to help me to get time tomorrow to grab a snack at least an hour before I go for a run, and to find a time for me to go for a run between meetings. So let's see what Copilot comes back with to help me manage my personal time or work-life integration.
Yeah. And you could do this for anything where you needed to say, I need to find time to do preparation and then, at least one day before a presentation or something too, right? So you're asking it to do something more than just, find one spot in the calendar.
Yeah. And
your first meeting starts at 2:05 a.m. That's fun.
Yeah, so let's just say Microsoft's the glue. As I mentioned, I'm part of Corp, so there are a lot of meetings that happen overnight. Thanks to Copilot, working asynchronously is so much easier. I don't need to go back and watch the whole videos. you'll find now let's call it our standard, not official, but kind of what most organizational business units are doing is having transcription running so that people can catch up. So that's what I do.
Which is what we saw earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, just overnight instead. So that's perfect. I now can put them into my calendar and away I go for tomorrow. Lots of people out there are always talking about being able to find information, and it's been one of the biggest challenges for most organizations for a very long time, trying to solve that. 27 minutes a day or 3 weeks of the year we waste looking for information we already have. And so what I'm going to use is Copilot to help me to find a report and then to help me to understand the value of it, because I need to present this to the execs later on. This is the Forrester Total Economic Impact Report, and all I've done so far is I've just downloaded it and saved it to my OneDrive. But where did I save it to? I can't remember. So let's get Copilot to help us. So
it's like you're reading my mind. I downloaded that report. Where did I put it? I didn't read it. I knew that it would be useful for me later. I think the idea of 27 minutes a day is absolutely true, that we spend finding stuff. I know I do.
And then some sometimes.
Yeah, I know, right? Because and for all of us as information workers, it's like the amount of stuff coming at us is huge. I'm in a job where, the context switching is pretty real, and you sort of, that ability to just find things quickly again is very high value for me.
Oh, absolutely. And also, while it's doing that, it's also worth just highlighting some of the quality benefits I see sometimes with Copilot is think about it when you're time poor, and like a busy exec I'll sometimes run these sessions with, you had to put out a new annual report, or let's say a CIO has just released the AI strategy and has 45 minutes to do a all hands presentation scope, and wants to make it inspirational, wants to make it have inclusive behavior, check that for accessibility, and then also find a famous quote or reference to the content, and also make it engaging. So using Copilot to actually ask that to create a inspirational report targeting our internal management team, make it find famous quotes referencing this content and make it engaging. And also, could you find a funny quip about this content as well? And doing all of that when you're time poor and had a very busy day and are stretched and stressed is incredible from anyone that I've been working with that's seen the value.
Oh, for sure. Because what ends up happening is you're going to do minimum required and race spend that 45 minutes, get it over the line. But again, that assistant helping you find other quotes, summarizing it in a certain way is just going to make it so much more valuable in that communication and the time that you've got. Explain it to me like I'm a uni student. This is another really core way of doing prompting, right? Is to ask it to, this notion that it's generating things is this really important concept, that it can generate something that isn't there using what's there. I've seen it done. Explain it to me like I have a colleague who likes to say, explain it to me like I'm a Labrador, and I did actually try that once. It's quite funny.
That's great. That is so cool. So this is good.
Okay, so
and
really
what I'm just highlighting is we have a lot of information that we try and process, but then we have to target it, first of all, for us to understand it and then be able to communicate it, and also communicating it to different cohorts. So using Copilot, for example, to be able to create an omni-channel strategy for your communications, where you might have been time poor and limited to just using email previously, knowing all the generations in the workforce and Gen Zers and that want to be communicated where they are. So there is some real benefits being able to target and segment, create an FAQ about this, but it's for our front line. So can you create it with simple English? Or, we have a branch in New Caledonia, so could you also do it in French? There's no limit to what it can do except for your imagination sometimes, right? One of the things I love is we need to also understand this like a senior exec. So I would ask something like, explain it to me like I'm a C-suite exec trying to understand the business value.
Yep.
All right.
Exactly. Why do I care?
Yeah. And The other piece I always try to do here as well is, I mentioned earlier the before, during, and after meeting. So help me prepare for where I'm presenting this, and we'll do it in a second. What questions might be asked, and if you give it more context, like what questions might be asked by, say, the board, it'll understand what the board is, what their responsibilities are, to help, say, the CEO or whoever's presenting this to be able to preempt what might come up about this, to really get it over the line. Because although our focus is all about, productivity and saving time to produce, the most important thing is the outcome. So how can I help with the quality, with the preparation for the meeting, to get the hopefully to win over the others in that meeting by being prepared for what they might throw at you? That might mean you either spin a cycle and have to go back with follow-up, or you don't get it approved at all. Like, this is some of the magic of Copilot.
Yeah.
And so it's given me a good idea of that, but it's quite high level. So I might then follow up with, and this is that iterative approach. You can see I've used 3 of 30 turns, where I might go back and say, can you pull out some key TCO or ROI stats, something like that,
Yeah. So the other thing you've been telling me about is this new initiative called This Is My Copilot. Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, this is an amazing initiative that Microsoft staff are looking at, how Copilot is helping them to be more inclusive and from an accessibility perspective. And it's their own personal story. Satya Nadella at the recent Ability Summit talked about how we can reduce the floor and increase the ceiling of what we can all do. And this is reflected in some of these stories here. But wait, there's more. Right now, if you scroll down, 11 stories there. And hopefully, when you click on this link, you will see the 12th story, which will be my own story published there.
Excellent. We'll pop a link here. If you would like to watch Adam's story, please do.
So that's everything, Lisa, for today. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for sharing. That's been amazing value of just kind of going through and understanding a bit more about the reality of use cases and things you've seen. I've certainly learnt some things in there about things I want to try. I hope everyone else has too. So thanks very much for your time. Don't forget to watch Adam's story and his particular experience with Copilot. And then I've got a bunch of tutorials here as well, if you would like to roll up your sleeves and do more with these things. Thanks very much, Adam, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you. Cheers all. Have a great day. Bye.